Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? We're so excited to have you here in the Universal Showroom in our Learning Center. If you've been here before, you may notice it looks a little different. I wanted to point out that all of the lighting in here was supplied and sponsored by Regina Andrew. They're located in the IHFC. If you have time, definitely stop by their showroom. It's absolutely beautiful. Before I turn it over to Gail and Ken, I just wanted to give a little brief overview of what we have going on in the showroom. So we have two new collections this market. We have Montclair located on floor 2, and then Oasis, which is our brand partnership with Coastal Living Magazine, on floor 3. We also have a new designer's lounge, completely redesigned out in the lobby. So now I'm going to turn it over to the Pearl Collective with Gail and Ken, and everybody help me give them a warm welcome.
Good morning, everybody. And you can tell this is Erin. Erin was supposed to be here, but she had a family emergency, and we just kind of yanked Ken off the streets, and we're good friends. And I thought it would be perfect because he owns a firm called Interior Talent, and that's down in Florida, and he has his team here as well. And I have my Kristen over here. And so we are here to help you today with hiring. How many of you have employees? And who does not have an employee? Okay, well, thanks for coming. So we just kind of wanted to know who's here. And as we get started with this, the reason I wanted to have Ken just come in, because he's great on his feet with things like this, is his business is a recruiting firm, and so he helps people find people. And so this is really great for you to get to hear him. He's been on our stage a number of times. We just love him and his team. So if you have a need and you're in a position where you don't really know how to hire, or if you're in a spot where you're so busy you don't have time to do it, it's really a good idea to hire a recruiter. So anyway, I'm glad to have him sub in today.
Thank you, Gail. Very nice. And so happy to be here and glad I can fill in for Erin. Unfortunately, like she's not here, but excited to see you all. And this is a really big topic, and so happy I can be part of it.
Okay, great. So please don't be shy. We're going to make this more workshop-y today. And the first thing I want you to do, if you would do me this favor, is there's a little half sheet on your seats. If you would just fill this out, and then Kristen's going to pick this up. We're going to have a little fun today, and two of you, if you're up for doing it, we'll do a little laser coaching. And we're going to help you with whatever your hiring questions are, so you can literally come up here and we're going to help you with whatever it is that you need. Anybody up for that today? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
go.
Oh, we've got volunteers already. Awesome, I love that. Okay, so these are just really simple questions, and it tells us a little bit about your firm so we know what is going on. Also, some of you, in case you sneak out today, I want to make sure and mention this. We have these little cards. We are, one of the things that's really interesting is that the industry has definitely gone through some ups and downs lately. And in the last time that we got the stats for this, the interior design industry average net profit, which is after all the product that you've bought and all of your expenses to operate your business, was averaging 3%. And our boardroom clients are at 13.3. And it's because of the fact that we really do teach a lot of things to help you make more money in your business. And we have a live event coming up May 18th and 19th. And it is a no-cost event, but we'll tell you more about it. But you might want to look into this if you're a company that has $1 million of revenue or more. And it is a really fun event. This will be our 4th one. And we just have a terrific time and have breakthroughs for people. And it's called Business Breakthrough Live for a reason. You actually do figure out how to solve some problems in your business. And it's just, it's a fun event that we love to do. So anyway, if you would do me a favor, I'm just going to also, while we're just collecting all of these forms, do me a favor and just tell me how many of you have 1 to 2 employees. Okay. All right. And how many? What's that? Just employees, not subs, right? Oh, well, you could include your subs in there too. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'm there.
I count. All right. How about, let's see, what is the other number here? 3 to 7. Okay, we have a couple of you. Okay. And how many of you have 8 or more? Okay.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so now we know who they are. All right. So we want to talk to you and solve your problems today. So I'd love to hear from a few of you in the audience, and I might get some help from Zach will help with maybe taking a microphone around. But what are some of the challenges, and why are you here today, and what can we help answer for you? Who would like to volunteer? We've got this nice lady right here.
I was going to ask, who's my first hire?
Oh, your first hire. Who's your first hire? Okay, we'll talk about that.
That's a good one.
Okay. I
Okay.
promise. Okay, yes.
We're definitely gonna hit that.
I'm in a similar position, I feel like I'm in this vicious circle of like, not knowing when to hire and like not being able to afford to hire, but if I can hire, I can take on more projects, so then I'll be able to afford something. It's like, okay, when do I make that leap?
Okay.
And similar, like, who is the next? Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. Yes.
Similar to both of them, I'll get 5 copies of the Feaster family, you'll get like the 5 inquiries at once, and you're like, okay, this is it, I should hire, but then you're stressed out because you can't train at that time.
Exactly.
And then do you get a PA, like as executive PA?
Uh-huh.
All of those tasks, when.
Sure. Okay, great. Did everybody hear those? Okay, when to hire, who to hire first, and how to deal with it when you've got ups and downs in the business.
She's got one more over there.
Oh, okay.
I am along the same lines of everyone else, but also I work at my home.
Okay.
So trying to decide, feeling like hiring someone remotely or virtually
Mhm.
versus someone in person, and I feel like the need for in person is stronger.
Okay.
So that's another challenge.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Excellent.
just so you know, my company is 17 years old, and we have been virtual for 16 years. So I wouldn't go back, and it is just awesome. So don't be afraid. Okay, we've got another question back here. Can you help with a
Pay,
microphone
salaries,
back there?
compensation. Yep. It is, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we just
compensation.
happen to have a little card on your seat, and you can get our survey that we
Right.
did with Business of Home.
Yep.
And it will give you a lot of data about pay scales. So I would highly recommend that you download that, and there's a little QR code on there so that you can download that report.
Okay.
Is this, yeah, okay.
Oh.
Also, I guess to piggyback on the pay, how to equate like different pay grades within your hourly and how to figure out what the hourly that you're charging the client should be.
Okay,
Okay, great. Okay.
great.
Excellent.
We are going to have a lot of good conversation today, yes.
I'm wondering, I have 5 employees, and
Okay.
it's hard for me to let go or not micromanage them all the time and like hover, you
Yes,
know? And
yes.
so if you have any tips to just
Okay,
Well,
back
yeah.
off and let them, do their thing and trust that.
Well, we'll
Things
talk,
are-
one of the things you have to think about is what level of hires are they? Right, so we can talk a little bit about that, but that's a big question because people are always concerned about who to hire, what level of candidate to hire. So and that will make a big difference on how much hovering you have to do.
Yes.
exactly right. So those are great questions. So if we do not answer it because we forgot or for some reason, please let us know, and we're going to have the mics, and we'll make sure that we get those questions answered. We want you to walk out with all the questions answered that you came to get answered today. So let's talk a little bit about why you should hire people. And I think that some of you are just new to the hiring, but some of you already have people on your team. And there are a lot of reasons to hire, and I think one of the big ones is to make more money. So in my view, and I learned this when I was running my interior design firm, I remember I had somebody who was working with me, and he said, "Oh yeah, you just need to hire." And I said, "Yeah, but," and the yeah, but questions like, how do you afford them? How do you keep paying them in case the business isn't there? How do you manage? How do you teach these people? There were all those questions, but in the end, he didn't really explain how to make more money at it. And one of the questions was, well, how do you pay your people? And then how do you end up, what do you charge for those people on your team? And we tell people usually it's 3 to 4 times whatever you're paying that person. If it's a burdened cost is the total salary plus any perks that they have, insurance and any of the benefits that you give them. It's somewhere between 3 to 4 times typically, and even 5 times if it's a very junior hire on your team. So if you think about this, instead of looking at a person as an expense, and I think where people get freaked out is they say, I don't think I can hire somebody. I don't think I have enough money or enough business to do that. But they're thinking about their whole salary for the whole year instead of thinking that you're paying a certain amount per month. It's not like you're paying their whole salary all at once.
Upfront.
Yeah. So just remember that you are bringing somebody in and they should make you money. So if you're charging out 3 to 4 to 5 times whatever you're paying them, then your profit is the difference between what you charge them out and what your salary is for that person with their burden. Does that make sense? Yes.
What capacity do you assume that they're going to have when they come on when you're doing that calculation?
They could have any level in the business. And so,
Sorry, when I say capacity, I mean how many hours are you assuming they are working?
about 75 to 80% of their time is billable. Uh-huh. Yeah, and how many of you track time? Sure.
Because I bill hourly,
Uh-huh.
at the end of the month, I normally break it up into categories.
Sure.
Right, floor plans and sourcing, yada, yada. And I try to just tie that into my assistants, like, I just take her hourly rate and then put it into like my hourly rate, if that makes sense. Like,
So you have a combined rate?
yeah, so it's like 5 hours of her time or whatever, I just put it into my hourly rate. But if you're saying that you do it the other way, like,
So you're billing for different people on your team. So for example,
I
if
tie it into my own stuff, so I guess I was gonna ask, like, how do you do that? How do you bill when you're billing by hour? How do you bill for your assistant?
you bill by the hour for your people.
Yep.
But would you list it as like a
Well, you might say design, and it could be design from you, could be design from others. You can have a total, or you can bill by person. And so you have a couple of ways that you can do that.
And you can categorize it, because if
Yeah.
they're doing production work, so, it's 10 hours production work, FF&E, procurement, whatever that looks like, you can categorize that as well. But I think the transparency probably for your clients would probably be a little bit more understanding the fact that you're just kind of showing them exactly all of what's been put into the project, as you're already categorizing it, but this is to be a separate employee.
Yeah, and there are so many ways around this whole thing. And what system do you use to bill them for that?
I have HoneyBook, I just track
Okay.
hours personally and then I just put them in.
Okay. And if you have employees, can you also have them set up so that they can track their time?
Yes, Gusto, I use a
Okay.
tool
Gusto, yeah.
She like clocks in for each client and I have it categorized, so.
So you can actually take that at the end of the month and just put it into an invoice. So, yeah.
Yes, and see exactly who should work for.
Okay, great. That's great. Yes.
If you're doing a flat rate fee, are you just charging your top fee and then whoever, like you're just profiting on the people who are making less than that fee, right?
Well, it would be nice if you had a nice balance of other people on your team who are at lower levels that don't cost as much, because then you have either more time or more profit, depending on who you're billing out. I'm not a huge fan of flat fees. I used to be. And what I found was we do a lot of analytical work with our clients, and so we do 3-year financial models. And I'll look at people's financials, and almost every single time, if they're doing flat fees, they're billing half of what they would bill if they were billing by the hour.
Absolutely.
And so they end up losing money by billing in flat fees. And maybe you're doing better at that, but I would tell you that a lot of people don't make a lot of money at that. So give that some thought. But even with a flat fee, everybody should track their time.
Yes.
And I think the biggest culprits for not tracking their time are the people that run the companies. So the designers that own the companies are so busy,
Yeah.
and they'll say, I don't have time to track my time. Well, you have to, because if you don't know how much time it takes you to do a project, then how do you know if you're profitable? So it's really important for you to track your time. I cannot emphasize that enough. And the people that we teach how to really run their businesses effectively, once they start doing this, they realize how much money they've been leaving on the table. And that's why we get those higher percentage of net profit for our clients, is because we teach people how to make money doing what they're doing, but you have to do the work to track your time. So I'm not saying you're wrong to do flat fee, but if you're doing it, I would also encourage you to reach out to our team, because we have a calculator that you can use that will help you figure a better flat fee for yourself too, that's profitable. So I encourage you to do that. Okay, so making more money with people. So you're going to bill out more than you can do if you are working by yourself. And so some of you want some numbers, and I love numbers. I'm a finance degree first before design. And so 250,000 is a fairly typical number that you're going to see when you're about ready to start thinking about hiring, somewhere in that $250,000 to $500,000 range. And if you're starting to get a lot of projects and you can see you've got a pipeline for 3, 4, 5 months out, and you need help and you're already working 60 to 80 hours a week, you need to hire.
Right.
So, then Ken, you can add to that.
Yeah, and I think because when you're looking at, I mean, there's so many things you have to do as a business owner, right? You have to be marketing, you have to be doing so many aspects of the business. And at some point, when whatever that revenue gets to a point, you really look at how do I get to the next level, that next person you bring on is taking off those things that are really, it's not worth your time. It sounds terrible to say, but it's not worth your time to be sitting behind a computer and doing CAD drawings, or going through sourcing for certain things. And having that next hire will allow you to really kind of take it to another level, like really be able to give you some hours so you can continue to market, get out there and network, right? You can't do that when you're stuck behind your computer and constantly working on that project. But Gail's 100% right as far as the revenue aspect of it. When you get to that point, and at the same time tracking your hours to see how much you're actually working to get to that level, you'll really see a big difference in, like, okay, there's a huge light bulb that'll go on. You're like, aha, because so many people as a solopreneur do not track their hours, and they see how much time. When you really finally calculate it, you're like, holy Christmas, I was doing all this. And then break that down to your hourly rate, it's pretty scary. It's not that good. So that next person will allow you to really get to that next level. But,
Yes.
some of the tasks, we see as far as that first, people asked about that first hire, we'll get into a little bit more, but you think of the tasks that you think you shouldn't be doing. They're usually a lower level task, CAD production, some administrative aspect of it. You got to be very careful if you think that should be your first hire, right? And we'll talk a little more into that, but people get confused on what that first hire should be. So you want to get into that a little bit now, or should we wait a little bit? It's a big one. Because when to hire?
Well, yeah,
What's the
we're
next
going
one?
to talk about
Okay.
that here in a second. So
I'm excited to
you had a
talk about that.
question. Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious, I think I'm a rarity as an entrepreneur where I really take my personal time as like it's high up on my.
Yay.
So I'm only really working between 40, maybe 50 hours on a busy week, right? And I still am having that feast or famine. And so you're saying 60, 80 hours and then you hire, but I want to hire now so that way I don't get to the point where I'm working 60, 80 hours and feeling stressed. I want to enjoy my business all the time. So I'm curious, am I jumping the gun by not
Sometimes.
needing it?
Not all the time, but sometimes. And I would answer the question this way. It depends on what your pipeline is and how much business you have coming and how much your reserves are in your business. If you have the ability to be able to sustain having somebody on and you're paying them, say, $5,000 a month, then if you have 6 months of maybe all your overhead costs, you can probably go ahead and bring that person on. So there's no reason you can't. But just remember that you have to watch your cash flow and make sure that you can bring that person on and sustain that business. Now, you brought up a really important thing, and I harp on this all the time to people, that you need to be marketing when you're the busiest. And the reason you have ups and downs in your business is because when you're busy, you don't tend to market, right? And so if you're waiting for the phone to ring and you're not doing outbound marketing, you're not doing the networking, you're not doing all those things, you're going to have these big lulls in your business. I see a lot of nodding heads. And so this happens because you're so busy doing the work that you're not bringing in the future work. And so you're always going to, whatever period of time you're not marketing, you're going to have at least that amount of time that's going to go like this.
With that being said, if you have, so
Well, that's why you should be out there marketing, right? So
That's why I want to hire, so I can go do a CEO.
that's exactly right.
And if you're willing to put some money in,
Yeah, and you can do a
then do
part-time
that.
person. You know,
Sure.
if some people are concerned, you know, there are some great part-time people, depending
Yeah.
on what the tasks are. And so just think of it, if it's an extra 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week that you want to put solely into marketing your company, which is what you should be doing at least, then yeah, that part-time person can fill that gap. And so it'll allow you to just have that time and focus on that, as opposed to constantly working within the project and not working on the business.
all right, so you mentioned, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. You talked about the 250 as a hurdle point. So once you
Yes.
get above that, so I'm not at that, but I'm
Okay.
working full time. So that's where I'm struggling. It's like, okay,
Ah.
I'm not there yet, but I'm working too many hours.
Okay, so
So-
are you tracking all your time?
Yeah, no.
I
Do you know,
thought
I think
so.
I tracked my time one time and I realized I was paying myself less than my cleaning lady.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So if you're working full-time or more,
Yes.
and you're not making 250,
Yep.
then I would tell you the first thing you need to do is just get really disciplined about at least putting it in your calendar, so you can go back to your calendar and see what you need to bill later. But do
Yeah.
it the same day, because you're going to forget what you did.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, you've got to get it in, because if you wait till the next day, you're going to say, what did I do at 4 o'clock? I have no idea what I did at 4 o'clock, right?
Yep.
So that would be the first thing I would tell you, is just really work on that. Because if you want to get to the next level in your business, you've got to have a team.
Yep.
And if you can't break that where you're making more than your housekeeper, then you've got to work on the discipline piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're doing the right thing. You're taking care of your clients, but you need to get paid for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's-
You owe it to yourself. Yeah. Not trying to give you a hard time. Oh, they usually do. Okay, so taking things off your plate, we talked about this. And I think one of the things I want to add in here is that how many of you have things you don't like to do in your business? Anybody have that? Okay, what do you not like to do?
Writing proposals.
Proposals, okay, what else? What was it,
Taxes.
Taxes, okay, what else? Paperwork, yeah, uh-huh. Yeah. Sourcing, invoicing, all that stuff. That's why you hire. You hire people to do that part of the job, and there are people that love to do that. So if you are able to bill at, I'm just going to take a wild guess, 150 to 200 an hour. Is that somewhere in the neighborhood here for most people? Okay. If you are billing or can bill at $150 or $200 an hour, and here's a good answer for you, you should be billing out 1/2 of your time. So let's just make it easy. We'll say it's 1,000 hours a year, because you've got some vacation in there. And if you're billing $200 an hour, you should have 200,000 of time billing that you should be billing out. So right there, you're going to get close to your 250 if you bill your 1,000 hours. So out of the 1,000 hours, if that's billable, the other 1,000 are not billable. But guess what? If you can hire somebody and you can pay them $25, $30, $35, $50 an hour, and you're making $200 an hour, do you think it would be better for you to spend your time on $200 an hour time versus $30, $40, $50 an hour time? So that's why you have to hire, because if you hire, then you can actually expand the amount of time that you're marketing and also making money for the firm by billing. Does that make sense? I hope the little light bulb went off. You guys are awesome. I love these questions.
So this is actually more of a comment more than a question, but what I found is that once I started hiring and you got to the proposal stage with your clients, it showed respect for their money as well. So let's say you
Absolutely.
do charge $250 an hour, that's not to input into Excel. So they'll see that you have an admin that, so it's very respectful, and I think it's a really great sales tool as well.
Absolutely.
That you're investing in your company.
Sure. Yeah, and if you're paying somebody, let's just make it easy, $50 an hour, and you bill them at $150 and you're billing at $250, that's exactly right. You're saving the client money, and you're giving it to somebody that's on your team who's going to do a better job than you will. Absolutely. Okay, a couple of questions up here.
I also just more had a comment that builds off of that I think a lot of what you're saying is like our time is more valuable growing the business.
Yes.
And like we're
100%.
going to make more than that 200 an hour if we figure out like, hey, like I am a partner in the business, I am a lot more valuable than the hourly design consultation, let's say.
Yes. Yes.
So just wanted to kind of summarize some of what I think a lot of us are saying.
I'm curious if the overall hourly of the 200, whatever it is that purely just experience, or is there a calculation on how we should determine what that hourly is?
You know, it's really interesting. That's a great question. And I think that I've got a lot of answers for that. Some of those are, how confident are you in your work? And where do you think you stack up against other people in your marketplace? Do you think you're as good or better than other people out there? Do you want to position yourself as one of the better people in the marketplace? Because people also make a judgment about how good you are based on how much you charge. So the higher you charge, then they assume that you're better because you're charging more.
Right.
And why shouldn't you make more? Yes, we have some more questions.
Well, I was going to say I was at a wonderful talk last. Testing. I was at a wonderful presentation last market, and there was a seasoned designer, and she said, I bill $300 an hour.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people are like, what? Oh my God. And she said, but here's the thing, I've been doing this 25 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So I can do this design work in half the time. She was like, so I earned that. I didn't start at $300 an hour.
Right.
And I thought that was really cool. It's like, so incrementally, you can go forward, you know, but it's, I would say, I tell my clients, I'm like, the standard hourly rate is $150. And I make sure other designers know that, because I'm like, you got to keep it elevated. Like everybody, you need to stay in the same playing field, you know, because if somebody down the road's like, I'm $75 an hour, and it's like, girl, get it together.
Right, but you're always going to find that person, right? And that's, you can't compare to that person, because there's always going to be someone in your neighborhood or that you can connect with that's going to be just, you know, their rock bottom rates, you know. But that's a business overall. Someone's always going to undercut you. But
Yeah, and people get what they pay for too.
oh my Lord.
Yeah, and people assume that if you're charging more, that you're probably worth more.
Yeah.
So if you just keep that in mind, just don't be afraid of it. And once you get that fee once, if somebody says yes, don't ever go back. So even if business gets a little bit slow, I'd rather take less work, but only take it at the rate that I have set as my new minimum.
Yeah. I'll
So-
say something, because we work with a lot of Gail's clients over the years, and one thing I've learned is that most designers always underpay themselves. They always charge too little. And once you get that confidence of actually really realizing your worth, right, then there's a big moment of pride, confidence that happens, and your clients will happily pay because you know they're good. But then also it frees up that opportunity, because now I have some additional funds, so then it kind of a snowball effect, so now I can hire to bring somebody on, right? If you go from 150 to 200, think about that. 150 to 175, right? It's a big difference. But you got to be very careful. But her clients that she's helped, they all come in, most of them come paying themselves way too little. And they come out of their program, they're just like, it's like, holy Christmas. It's like, and it's and their clients are like, just, okay, great, we get it.
Yeah.
Right?
And sure, places like New York and LA and Chicago, some of the bigger markets, you're going to charge more.
Right.
But you'd be surprised, even in Denver, when I was doing design 18 years ago, I was charging $250 an hour. So I was at the top of the market, but I was also doing top of the market work.
Right.
So I just decided one day, because I remember starting at, $55 an hour out of design school 30 some odd years ago. And then I realized over time that the faster that I increased my rates, the better the clients I got.
Yes.
So it's really interesting how that perception of you changes as you start charging what you're really worth.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of it. It's really good. So let's talk about when to hire.
So I just want to touch base on the overstretched team real quick. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
deal with
sure.
recruiting, right? So your team, so this industry has changed quite a bit, right? And one thing that we find, one of the big reasons why people will leave your companies is because they get burnt out pretty easily, Okay, the days of working a lot of hours and putting your time in is not really necessary anymore. So what you hire, because if you see your team is stressed and they're working 50 hours a week, 55 hours a week, that's way too much. Especially when you take advantage of that and they're on a salary. You got to be really careful because it's going to cost you a lot more to rehire somebody than it is to get a new person to kind of bring everybody back to a level playing field of hours. So be very careful. So that for the people that have multiple employees, if you're tracking your team's hours and you're seeing that they're working 45, 50 hours a week, then you need to. That's definitely a time to bring on another person to help. And once again, same time as bring on someone to support them in those tasks that maybe aren't necessary for them to put all their time into.
Are you billing every 2 weeks, every month?
Well,
when the
I like the
project's
2
done,
week.
like, to keep up with
Yeah.
that payroll for all of your employees. And-
Yeah, I like the 1st and the 16th. Those are really great dates to do it, like every 2 weeks. And that way your cash flow is higher.
Right.
And the other thing is it keeps people getting their time in.
Yep.
So if the shorter the time period, the more likely you are, and especially if you say the time billing goes out the 1st and the 16th. That's what I did in my firm. And so that helped our cash flow tremendously. So I would do that.
Okay,
great.
yeah, I don't want to be out of pocket for my employees.
No.
Yeah, I don't like that either. Okay, so when to hire. So you've got to have a sufficient pipeline, and a pipeline might be 3 to 6 months of work ahead of you. That's definitely a good time to hire, because if you know that you've got projects coming up, and there's so many levels of work that need to be done on that project, like the proposals, like the sourcing and all those things that you talked about. So if you can have somebody that's a lower level on your team doing that for you so that you can be doing the client work and the client meetings and just setting the creative direction for the project, that's when you're going to make the most money and get the most money into your business, the most profit into your business. So it's really important to start hiring when you are ready to do it. Another thing is having enough revenue to carry the cost. You've got to have at least $250,000 of revenue, I really think. You can get some people to work for you part-time. You can outsource some things. But I'll give you a really great story. I had a client that came to me. She's a coach for us now. And she came to me several years ago, and we did a VIP with her. And she had 17 employees on her team. And I said, okay, well, tell me about your team. Tell me who's on your team. And she said, well, almost all of them are half-time. And I said, that must be a freaking nightmare to manage 17 people. She said, oh my God, you just cannot imagine. So one of the very first things we did is we had her cut her team in half in numbers, and she got full-time people. So just be careful not to get a bunch of full-time or part-time people, because that just, it expands the number of issues that you have, and it's harder to manage. So just remember that if you have somebody that's part-time, they're working 20 hours a week, well, are they working 5 days a week? Or are they working 3 days a week? So whatever time they're not working, they're not actually able to move a project forward. So if you have a full-time person, they're there every day and they can move projects forward. If they're there half-time or just a few days a week, you have to wait till they're back in the office to be able to bill for their time or to get them to do work. Does that make sense? So be really careful not to hire too many part-timers. And then I would say consider your business goals of whether you want to maintain what you're doing, whether you want to scale your business, and whether you want to sell your business at some time in the future. And you all look pretty young here, so I don't think anybody's ready to sell. But at some point, you're going to be thinking about, what do I do to exit this business? And the only way you can really exit a business is if you have employees on your team and it's not dependent on you to bring the business in or do the business.
That's a really big thing. We're dealing with a lot of companies now that are succession planning and trying to get to that point where they want to sell their business or get out of the business. And because there's nobody doing their job, it's not going to happen, right? So you always have to be thinking about what are those tasks that someone else can, you start introducing that senior designer into more client interaction and to that next step. And it really makes a big difference. But start that soon. Start it like as soon as you can afford to do that.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you have some redundancy of people, that it also allows you to have some life. So if you want to go on a vacation and something needs to be done, you have someone that can do some of those tasks. But it's a really big issue what we see now because a lot of people are so in the business that they're not having the right support so they can step away from some of those key responsibilities.
So I'll just give you an example because I'm preparing for exit somewhere whenever that happens. I'm not sure when that's going to be. But I take sabbatical this year twice. So I'll take 9 weeks off. I'm
so
taking,
jealous.
Well, I've worked for it, and I
You
have a great team.
and she's so good about it. She says, "You're so good about that, Gail." I'm going away for a month. I'm like, I hate you. Cry, tear.
But, you know, if you want to take time off like that, if you want to take a chunk of
Yeah.
time off in the summer for your kids, wouldn't that be great? So I took my last sabbatical, each one is totally different. At the end of the year, it was 5 weeks. And guess what I ended up doing? We were moving into a new house, so I had to pick all my furniture and order furniture and get all that stuff done. So I was doing design work again. It was like, oh my God, I hate this. I realized that, oh my gosh, I was so spoiled, and I had some damaged furniture. And I actually asked somebody, I said, how do I deal with the damage? Because I had always had team. And I'd had team to help me deal with those problems, so I didn't know how to do a freight claim. It was funny. So anyway, I would just tell you that the faster you can build a team and the more you have people, like on a leadership team, you're hitting about 8 people usually, and you're usually $2 to $2.5 million in revenue. That's a perfect time to be starting to build a leadership team. And that leadership team helps you make decisions in your business. And it will change your life. Okay, you have another question? Yes.
Yeah, so 2 quick questions.
Sure.
Number one, when you're going over your profit and loss at the end of the month, quarter, year, which
Yep.
we're all doing, right? Going over our profit and loss. All right, good. As far as general expense categories, where should payroll rank? Is it my biggest expense? Is procurement ahead of that, and payroll second? Taxes? Where in the categories of expenses should payroll be? And then second question, quick follow-up. Is there a % of overall revenue that I should be aiming to manage my payroll costs, not too high, not too low, to make sure I'm keeping up with the business?
Yeah. Okay, great question. And so the first expense is the biggest in the company is usually your cost of goods sold, everything that you're buying for your projects. So that would be your furniture, your fabrics, all of that. And then the second expense that's the biggest is your team. Yep. And that's somewhere in the 20 to 35%. And the lower that is as a percentage, obviously the more profits you're going to make. Yep, for sure. Yes.
A month sabbatical is a goal for me.
I highly encourage it.
Because there's what's that book? Not who, not how. The guy,
Yes,
the author
yes.
of that is like he takes his sabbaticals. How do you I want to make that a goal of mine in the coming years. How do I know when I'm ready to do that? How much money do I need aside to make sure I can take a month off?
Well, you have to make sure that your team is bringing in the revenue for you, and you're not the only one bringing revenue in. So I would say that's one of the biggest triggers that tells you that you're ready and that you have enough pipeline to do that. So the first time I took sabbatical, and this will be my 5th one coming up, the first time I took one, I told everybody a year in advance. And Kristen will probably attest to this, that nobody believed I would do it, and because I'm very involved in the business. And I said, no, I'm serious. I am taking time off. And it was 5 weeks the first time. And so you have to plan for that. And you want to make sure that everybody is trained, everybody knows how to handle things. Somebody else is bringing in the business while you're off on your break, and that you've got systems and processes in place in your business. So you just make the decision, put a date on the calendar, great time to do it. I take the Saturday before Thanksgiving until January 2nd. So that's my annual for sure, and then I'm taking a summer one this year.
I just wanted to, real quick, team, my 3 employees here, I'm giving you 1 year notice. I'm taking a sabbatical.
There you go. Okay. Yes.
Hello, it's me again.
Oh, of course.
So I started my company about 3 years ago, kind of when COVID started to hit, and I was very nervous as much as, a well-established business was.
Sure.
So at that time, I thought, okay, I'm going to hire staff that I know that I need, but I'm going to contract out. And so it's kind of a hybrid model where
Yeah.
I pay a much higher rate for these experienced contractors. But what I've also experienced is they take so much pride because it is their company. And because I feed them so much business, I'm number one. They show up. So I'd love to kind of hear your comments on that, the hybrid model.
All for it.
And I also have another question. Once you do have staff established, I hope there's no one in HR here, but my biggest fear are babies and pregnancies. Because
Yeah.
I can see how traumatic that would be to the, very exciting, so happy for them. 2 kids of my own, but I can see how traumatic and derailing it could be because you've invested all this training, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and how do you replace that immediately? So those are my 2 loaded questions.
Well, I mean, I think you're going to get some notice that they're pregnant. So I think science has proven that. But so you have to have an honest conversation with your team and say, listen, we're going to find somebody. I have to find someone to replace you while you're on maternity leave, what have you. And, you know, I always tell because we deal with a lot of our clients will tell us I have somebody going on maternity leave. I said, you can't guarantee that person's going to come back. But here's the thing, is if they do come back, it's an opportunity for you to now, okay, let's get them, let's build the business more, right? So you have another person, but you take the time, and as soon as you know, you have to start that process of looking for that person, right? And I'll just make the comment, I think contractors are great, but it can come in a situation where you're at a point now you really need all of their time, right? It's expensive, and as a contractor, and you have good ones, but not all contractors are great, and they may not dedicate their time to you. And that's when it becomes a little sticky. You know, some companies have great success with, some don't. So, but as far as, you know, from a maternity aspect of it, is you have to start right away. And listen, that's wonderful, right? But there is a process that has to, and an honest conversation has to happen. Because there have been so many of my clients where they say, oh, I just need somebody for, 3 months or 6 months, and that person never comes back. Yeah.
I've just heard that happen to somebody. Had 2 people, same thing, and they came back and they said, "We're not going to stay."
Yep.
I had somebody that had 4 people out around the same time for maternity leave. Out of, I think her team was 6 at that time. So talk about stress, because she had a lot of business in her business. But that's your solution, is to go and outsource during that period of time is one of the things you can do always. I'm a huge fan of outsourcing. We have part 1099s on our team. Some of those people work just for us, some people don't. And so, you just have to make sure you're following the IRS rules too. But there comes a point where managing a lot of part-time or a lot of outsourced people is not the right thing for you. And if you're really going and scaling quickly, then you need to start looking to build your A bench. That's really critically important. So that would be something for you to think about. So let's talk about who to hire. Gosh, we could stay here for probably all day. So let's talk about who to hire and who is an A-team player for you. So how many of you have ideal client profiles for your clients? Okay, probably maybe a third of you. Okay, you should have the same for your employees. So, and I think you can probably speak to this too. You'll know, you should have a job description for the person that you want to hire. And I think it's really important for you to know what is a good hire for you and what's not a good hire for you.
Yeah, but and it starts with, Gail has written down about values and your culture.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what kind of company you really want to create, not from how you design, but really from the culture, whether it's that first employee or it's your 10th employee, it's really one of the top reasons why people leave companies or join companies, is the culture and environment that you've created. And I think that's really starts with those values. Whether you're a solopreneur or you have 10 employees, if you don't have somewhere written your core values, you got to go back to your office tomorrow and do that. Because it's really difficult to create a culture around an idea without in black and white, and so you can commit to it. It's really, really important. And so I think that's it starts there. Once I know who my company is and what my culture is going to be, now I can look for people that have skill sets for the responsibilities that I need them to do. A great job description, very detailed. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's lots of good resources out there to find great job descriptions. You can go steal someone else's posting. But then now you have to look at, okay, how do you want to integrate that person into your culture? What are some ways that you actually are going to go through the process of evaluating those candidates, right? And so taking the time in that process is really important. Personality. This industry, I'll just say this and I'll let you talk, Gail. This industry is terrible in so many ways because we want to hire our best friend. You can't hire your best friend. You can't. Because at some point, personality is one thing, but they have to do the job, right? And then what happens is when you hire someone that you just really love, their energy and everything, what happens if they're not doing well and it's time to let them go, right? It's a really difficult conversation. It's uncomfortable for everybody. Mm-hmm. So you really want to hire based on the cultural fit within the organization. You want to hire on skills and how do they fit within the values. And then, yes, personality is important. Do they get along with each other? Is this someone I would like to sit next to that I want to collaborate with for 40, 45 hours a week? Yes, those are all really important.
Yeah, and I would say on top of that, there's a really good study that talks about finding somebody that's hungry, humble, and smart.
Love that.
And those are really great attributes, but you need to have attributes in mind. Here are the things I do want, here's what I don't want. And don't hire somebody who's just like you are or has the same skill set.
Yep.
You need people with other skill sets that can do the things that you're not the greatest at. Because that's what you want to fill in, is what you're not capable of doing easily for yourself. So we all have things we love to do, and sometimes we're really good at doing things, but we shouldn't be doing those things because there's no reason we should be doing that. Like, we don't want to be doing accounting. My God, you guys don't want to do accounting, do you? You can do that. Well, that's what your job is, yeah. But you probably love it. But if that's the case, that's great. But definitely, if you're a designer, you don't want to do accounting. No. So that is definitely one of the earlier hires. But I would tell you, and I had a client in Denver, and that's where I live, and she had a senior on her team, and it was just the two of them. And she was outsourcing her accounting. I said, good for you, keep doing that. Using Studio Designer, Design Manager, things like that. Any of those softwares are great, and there are people that can do that outsourced work, and you don't have to do that. So hire somebody who's billable first. Hire somebody senior first, because you want somebody you don't have to train and babysit. You want somebody who's capable of running a job and who can work independently and can bring in money for your company. So remember, 3 to 4 times whatever you're paying that person. So let's say you're paying somebody $100,000 a year, and it sounds scary, but that's pretty common for a senior. So if you pay somebody and they've got 10 years experience, they understand construction design, FF&E, all those different things, they can write specs, then why would you not want to hire that person if they can make $300,000 to $400,000 for your company, right? So that difference, that spread, maybe 400,000 minus 100, that's 300,000 for you to operate your business, to pay your expenses, and also to pay more salary to you.
Yeah, and the amount of hours you're going to spend constantly coaching and teaching this young designer how to do things, not just the way you want to do it, but there's a lot of time and energy and a lot of errors that are made. And so finding someone that's more senior, and listen, maybe you can only afford a 6-year person. If that's the most you can afford, that person's going to be much more billable and take much more off your plate than a 2-year or fresh out of college person. They're great. At some point in your company, they're great to bring on, great to bring in internships, but when there's someone else to help manage that person. If that's your first hire, if a junior designer or a design assistant your first hire, be wary, be careful, because you're going to spend more time and you're going to pull more hair out than it's worth. Listen, I work with a lot of junior designers, and I think they're great, but Gail's 100% right. You can't build them out the same way, right? That first hire is going to cost you more money because your time is worth a lot, $200, $250 an hour, whatever it is, $300, the one lady said. And that time, you can't bill out time that you're constantly coaching a new employee, a junior employee.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you, the Erin that was supposed to be here, she's worked for me, it'll be 20 years in July. She started as an intern for me in my design business, and now she's VP and co-founder of this company. So it's not impossible, but I will tell you, she was probably one of the smartest, fastest learners I've ever had. In 2 years, she was really contributing a lot, and I could actually send her out on projects. That's highly unusual. because I did not have that experience with all the different people that worked for me. And so she was, in fact, I remember one day she looked at me because she was watching me redline the time bill. And she saw me marking out hours for her on the time bills. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I can't bill for this time. It took you too long to do this. And so we've got to get you more efficient." So I took a lot of time to train her so that she was able to be more efficient in her job. And after that, she was unbelievable because she just was just dialed in. She said, I get it. I don't want you to lose money on me. So that's an unusual person, and that's why she is where she is with me today. And it's not common. So don't assume that it's cheaper to hire an intern. It's going to be the most expensive hire you'll make.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So if the recommendation is for your first hire to be someone senior that can almost be like a clone of you to double your project workload, whatever it is, do you, for first hire, when you're first bringing someone on, would you consider like partnership as part of the compensation? Do you go straight salary? Nothing like that?
No. No, they're not. You don't know if you want them as a partner.
Yeah, no, don't.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of partnerships. I do have several clients that have partnerships, but they're either spouses or somebody that they know really, really well. And I've had to help people break up. I've actually had to do that. And so that is not a fun thing to do. I would not ever extend an offer to somebody with that kind of proposal. Down the road, they might have an opportunity to work into that, but you need to have experience working with them before you even consider it.
Yeah.
Don't even bring it up in conversation. Yes.
I might be jumping the gun, and I know there's quite a few people out here who already have a team. I am stuck at the logistics of hiring, insurance, thinking about all the different things that you need to do for an employee. Is there a good resource to go to figure out all of that, or can we talk about that, or?
Well, as far as when you bring on the first employee, there's really not, you need a payroll company, right? And that's really economical. They'll handle all the taxes that are necessary for that. You don't really need to offer insurance. You can if you want to, but you don't necessarily need to. There's lots of ways around it. You don't have to. If you have a big company, you can do that. But you can offer an HRA, which is a health reimbursement arrangement, or health savings account. You don't have to offer health insurance. And outside of that, your company should have a liability insurance, right? Because you're on projects, and workers' comp will come into that as well, and that's very economical. So there are resources that usually a payroll company can help you with all the responsibilities of insurance-wise from an employee. And like paychecks, there's so many different companies. And it's pretty
Gusto's
economical.
really good. We like Gusto.
Yeah.
Super easy.
Yeah.
Gusto.
Yeah.
Gusto.
And they just walk you through that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's so
really
easy.
Think about it, it's like, set this up, and you're like, oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we've got another question over here.
Two questions now. The Gusto, do you recommend that over ADP?
I do.
Okay.
I've used that before, ADP, and I think Gusto is super simple.
Yeah, I think Gusto's a little bit more designed for it's simpler to use. I think
Yeah.
ADP is a massive organization. They deal with 1,000 employee firms and companies, massive companies.
Okay.
So, yeah,
It's very intuitive.
Yeah, I think it's easier,
It's
more
got this
user-friendly.
cute little pig that goes across the screen.
And then this question, please just pass it if it's not right, because you mentioned partnerships. There's this architectural design firm that's interested in working with me because they don't do furnishings,
Sure.
and I love furnishings. So kind of partnering in the sense of we're going to be separate entities.
Yeah.
We're going
Oh, yeah,
in as a
Oh, yeah.
collaborative.
That's fine.
Are
That's
you
great.
cool with that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. That's
Yeah,
great.
that works really well,
Yeah.
and you can refer business back and forth to
Yeah.
each other, so, yeah,
And that should be,
absolutely.
those are great relationships. Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump in.
Oh,
We have
she-
two more sections.
she had one quick question.
I'm sorry?
I'm just dying to know about project management. I really feel like I need somebody to have my back on project management.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to hire for.
Who is that person? Because again, it's like, do I get somebody that's a designer that's dealt with project management?
Yeah.
Or, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are interiors project managers that have done it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's their responsibilities. That's their thing. There are many people, people take a couple different paths as designers. You go creatively, or you love that organization, the scheduling, the budgeting. People get really into that, right? And there's a space for them. And those people are incredibly valuable. And so, but there's somebody you don't go cheap. That is somebody, don't go cheap on. That will be, that's a worthy investment to get the right person with experience. Right.
You said House Pro?
Yeah.
Oh,
House Pro,
House
yeah,
Pro.
yeah.
Okay.
Those are great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know my next hire is a project manager, and I'm trying to decide, I know it's not cheap, but can I start part-time with him? Or should that be a full-time position?
I think it's hard to have a part-time.
I think it's hard to have it part-time too.
Yeah.
I would agree with Ken. It's
Yeah.
just, it is such, there's so much that goes into the project management piece.
And things are coming up all the time,
Yeah,
whether
you
it's
can't-
installation issues or contractor issues. There's things that are happening all the time. And
Yeah.
if that person's not, Johnny or Jane on the spot, what's the ripple effect from that?
Right.
Yeah,
So I think it goes back to that letting go, and just because I'm
Yes.
on site all the time right now,
Yeah.
and like letting go and just
Yes.
making sure that they're doing it correctly.
Yes, yes, sure.
Well, that goes back to I think you were the one that was talking about micromanaging. One of you did. One of
Yeah.
you two.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah.
No.
Well, we all think we can do things better, but the reality is other people can do things better than we can. So we want to be sure to hire the right people, and it's better to pay more and get a really good person and hire a full-timer for things like that. That's a huge role. Another one is, and maybe you're not ready for project management, but maybe expediting. And that's an area where that would take a huge load off your plate, having an expediter on your team. And then you can get to the project manager later. So that's an idea. Or you can have a senior who is really, really experienced with project management. So it could be one of those many options. And it depends on your situation and the person that is coming to you with a resume, because you don't always know who you're going to get.
No.
Okay, so we have a couple of other sections we want to make sure and cover. We're almost out of time. Okay, just briefly, if you want to prep for success with your hires, you need to have written business cultures and values and define your negotiables and non-negotiables. And then also make sure you have the job description, do interviews with them, have personality tests, and give them sample projects. If they're coming in for design, they should do sample projects for you. And you want them to present to you. You want a floor plan, an elevation, you want them to pick a palette, all of those things. Those are things that you can do to make sure you hire the right people.
Yep.
You can.
You can.
Some people do.
But it shouldn't be more than a couple hours of their time
Yeah.
that they can do over the weekend, right? It shouldn't be anything too lengthy, especially as you get more senior a candidate, they're less likely to really want to take the time to do that. Yeah.
And then the other piece of this is the training, delegating, and inspiring people. And you should have an onboarding process. How many of you have something written? Okay. A couple of you do. So important to have, especially as you're scaling your team, you want to have a process and have at least the first 2 weeks mapped out. Who are they meeting with? Who's going to be training them? You shouldn't be doing all the training.
Mm-hmm.
So who on your team is going to help you train, and what do they need to know to be able to be effective very quickly? So do not stop or do not have this, because that's one of the most important things you can do. Shadowing, that's really important. Make sure that they have time, especially in their first couple of weeks. And really, training is ongoing. So just don't assume they're done after 2 weeks and you can just throw them out there to run a project. You need to be working with them and make sure that you're checking in that they're really capable of running that project. Learn how to delegate the outcome and not the task. This is something I see a lot of people make a mistake with. Delegating the outcome is to tell people, this is what I am expecting you to accomplish. This is what it looks like. It's not how they do it, but here's what the outcome looks like. And if you do that, you're going to have a much better result with your employees. A lot of people will hand out tasks, but the employee they don't know, how does this relate to the rest of the project? How does this relate to the company itself? And so that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. Make sure you're doing reviews frequently, for sure, the 90-day review, and I know Ken likes you to do it more often than that. And then make sure you do feedback loops, and this is where people have the hardest time making sure people understood what they said. You want to explain it to your employee, and if you have documentation, a video, like a screen capture video that you're recording it when you're training somebody is great, but also ask the person, what did you hear me say? How did you hear me say that? And what is it that you're going to take away from this and execute for me? And you want to hear what they have to say, because I guarantee you they only heard part of what you said. And that's where most people fail at delegation, and that's why they micromanage. And that's what I see most commonly. So those are just some really quick tips, and I know we're at the end of our time, but you want to add
I'm just going to
a few
emphasize
things?
3 things, and I'll keep you one
Okay.
more minute. When you're interviewing, take your time. Every candidate should go at least 2, if not 3 different interviews. And you're probably saying, like, well, why am I going to meet with them 3 different ways? You want them in a more formal environment, a more casual environment, and then maybe some kind of put them through a task of some sort, right? So take your time. Slow to hire, fast to fire is a real thing. Onboarding training is very important, but onboarding is not just training. It's how they transition within your company. Onboarding, we have on our website on interiortalent.com, it's 100 days of onboarding. You're like, 100 days, that's crazy. Onboarding starts the moment that employee says yes. The moment they say yes is onboarding. How you introduce them to the world, how you introduce them to fellow employees, and then what does it look like when they actually come in the door? What's ready for them? Having a one-sheeter written out for that training is incredibly powerful. Even if it says, today we're going to, and it's got 3 things, it doesn't matter. It's written out, it says you took time. So you go through that process. And then onboarding continues the first 90 days, so 10 days before and 90 days of employment, and you do little things in there called stay interviews. The stay interviews are not a formal evaluation, it's really making sure you're understanding what's going on, how are they feeling. It's an opportunity to really connect with that employee, to really understand who they are as a person, and how are they liking the job. What are some questions? When you have a sit-down evaluation, it's very important. You write it down and get that feedback, but sometimes it's a little too rigid. So when you have these stay interviews, they can be more comfortable. It's a cup of coffee or having a tea, and it's an opportunity to get to know them and allow them to be more open and free to express how they're feeling about things. So, great. Thank you
for
so
your
much,
time.
everybody.
Thank you.